Hello and welcome to the Scott Sportscast, Alex and an Athlete. Today we have a special guest, Arturo Corres. This man is not only a very decorated high school cross country and track runner, but a college one as well. So, without further ado, how you doing, Arturo?
Doing good, brother. Good to be on the show.
Oh, beautiful to have you here,
Thank
especially
you.
now that the air's starting to get better.
Oh yeah, it's nice to be able to go get out on runs again without having to worry about having to wear a mask due to all that smoke.
Oh yeah, I mean, just the last thing you want to do when you're working out is restrict your breathing.
Oh yeah, and then that smoke just hurt like hell trying to get a good run in.
It'll be like training with one of these. This is
Ah,
elevation training mask that I used to use because I bought it because whenever I had my fight in Utah, I'm coming from sea level going up to like the third highest elevation. Um, so I needed to figure something out to get used to it because I wasn't going to stay there but one
mm.
day. So, and man, did I get tired instantly though. Good thing
Oh,
that
I'm
fight.
sure.
I'm glad that fight didn't last long because I don't know how long I would have lasted.
Yeah, you
But
get winded up that high up, that thin air just it gets to you.
those oxygen molecules spread apart, so you get less oxygen per breath, and your muscles suffer.
Yes, sir. Feels like you're breathing with needles in your lungs.
Yeah, and nobody wants to compete like that.
No, no, you get taxed way too fast.
And that's why, like, especially in football, you got that home court advantage that it plays a part because of the environment.
Oh yeah, like the Broncos, man. I'm sure everyone has a hard time getting up there to play those games.
What was it? They had like the longest streak of like the first opening 2 weeks playing at home because no one's used to the elevation except for them.
Yeah.
So yeah, Bears snapped that streak though. Let's go. But anyways, so why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're up to these days?
All right, so we'll start with my high school career. Ran cross country from freshman year. We made it to state that year. After that, we just kept on working with the whole team to try to make it to state again. The field just got way too deep during my years, at least I feel like it got super deep. So we always made it into the CCS championships, and then like teams were just crazy fast. So weren't able to get back into state after that. But we had some great teams. Workouts were hard. We had a great coach. Then I went off to college, learned a lot in college. I was only at Humboldt State for 2 years. Came on as a walk-on. Um, Ran both cross country and track there. And then came back home. Got a couple big injuries, so kind of like put all the whole running career on hold for a while. And nowadays I'm starting to run again, trying to get back into that competitive field. So we'll see. It's peak for everyone my age right now. You know, the 30-year-old bracket.
Mm-hmm.
These guys are intense. These are the elite guys. So I don't know if I'll get into that level yet, but we'll see in the future.
Well, it's always a no until you try.
Exactly.
So that's awesome. I'm glad that you're getting back into it. It's one of those things where, you know, you feel like you can only take it so far, but then you realize, there's plenty of other ways you can take it and ways to stay competitive and also enjoy it at the same time at the highest levels.
Yeah, and just learning from like all my old experiences from high school and college to what I'm doing now, it's night and day, man. I wasn't much about doing weights in high school because I thought it was going to get me bulky and get me slow, just too much weight on me. And now I've learned that that was the biggest mistake I probably did in high school, not doing any sort of weights. And to any of the listeners that might be in high school and everything, I totally recommend putting some sort of weight routine into the mix of their workouts. Now that I'm actually starting to do it, I mean, you don't have to lift super heavy, but get some good strength into yourself because I mean, you use your back, your shoulders, arms, chest, every muscle is being used when you're running at your racing pace, right?
Yeah,
So
especially your core. People don't don't think that you use your core, but man, it's all torque from your hips.
Oh, there's so much that comes from that. And then, so it goes from the top all the way down to your legs. You've got to put your squats, your everything that you can do to your legs, you got to put that in. I mean, you don't have to do heavy and try to like be lifting 500 pounds, but I mean, just putting in some sort of weight training to make your legs even stronger is going to help in the long run, because you don't realize it when you're in high school, but you're using like your quads and your hamstrings a heck of a lot more than you would expect. And you just running alone and putting that mileage isn't gonna make them stronger
No.
in certain areas. So I know that was one of the big parts that played a role towards me getting injured later on when I got to college. That
Hmm.
my I was I mean, we're at sea level and most of our running is like completely flat out here in Monterey, seaside. So of
Yeah.
course your quads start being used a heck of a lot more. So I had a difference in strength between my quads and my hamstrings once I got to college, that from running at like getting to like a closer elite level, having that difference made it so that I was compensating way too much, and I ended up pulling and almost tearing my hamstrings. Right. If I
Yeah, that
would have
ain't.
done, yeah, if I would have done my training like I should have and been doing like squats and lunges with weights and everything, I really doubt that would have happened. And I probably would have stayed in college a little bit longer, probably made it into like more of a national competitive level.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I think that I was pretty much the same way, even though we lifted for the wrestling team, it's after that, I wasn't really lifting weights. I was, mainly pushing and pulling people because
Hmm.
that's what I was going to be doing in the sport. So I felt that that may have been the reason why my body didn't hold up as long as it should have. I
I think
feel
so too.
hey. So it's one of those things where it's very important to make sure that your foundation is strong. If
Yeah.
you want to build a tall building that lasts, you can't start off on flimsy legs. So,
Nope. No, and like now that I actually like, well, not right now due to the pandemic and everything, all the gyms are closed around here. But
mhm.
when I started finally lifting like last year, like really getting into it, I hadn't been running for like a good 2 3 years at that point. Just started doing a bunch of lifting, and I went low weight, high reps, so it would feel kind of like cardio at the same time.
Mhm.
As soon as I started running, jumped back into running, my first run, I did like a 6 mile run, and I was running it at like 6:45 pace, which is something that I never thought I'd be able to do, especially off of like no actual endurance training.
Yeah,
So it
just fresh off the bench.
yeah, it just shows that that kind of training will and can help any endurance athlete. I think it's one of the most important parts of your actual training,
See, that's the
because
thing. The difference between endurance and these other sports is you need endurance training, not strength training. And
mm-hmm,
difference, like you said, low rep, high rep, low weight. That'll help give your oxygen that to your muscles so that way they can use them more efficiently. But strength training, that's just short bursts. that's
yeah.
that's if you're doing a pull up, or you're tackling somebody, that quick explosiveness. But when you got to go a long distance, you got to train and get your body right for long distance. So there's a big difference.
Oh yeah, no, completely. I mean, I do put in some of the strength training into my workouts, but it's very little in between. So I do my long runs and my speed work, and then I'll do like some calisthenics stuff right now that we're in the pandemic. Been doing a lot of calisthenics. Um, and then with some of the weights that I have here at home, then I'll do like some like heavy squats or like sumo squats, more heavy liftings just to get some of that strength in. But most of the time it's going to be low weight, high reps.
Yeah. That's good. So, let's let's move on and let's talk a little more in depth about your high school cross country and track. So, first off, track. What events did you compete in, and how was your high school experience throughout?
So track, I was like the all around guy. Um, I trained mainly for the mile, 2 mile, but I would be dropped into the 400 for the 4x4 and the 800 every once in a while. So I was mostly a four event kind of guy. Um, I loved all the events. I used to think that I was an 800 miler, you know, because everyone loves those events. Those are the ones that most people come out to see. I was totally more of a 200 kind of guy though. I just was able to grind it out, and that's just one of those races where you gotta just be mentally tough, and you can't just rely on your speed. Kind of like
Mm,
again in the 800, which is a whole different beast because you have the combination of having to be as fast as a 400 runner, but being able to like keep up that distance and that endurance of like the mile. So it's just like it's a grueling race.
it just sounds like a warfare, just a war zone out there. But the thing too is you can't let, like you said, the mental side of it. You can't let your mind trick you into thinking that it can't do something, because your mind is the biggest thing that will prevent you.
Oh
So
yeah, no,
how many times have you been like, oh, it's so hot or so something, I just can't take another step. And then a couple minutes later, you're like, wow, I just did another lap.
yeah,
Like,
no. Mental toughness is a huge thing, and I don't think we push our athletes, and at least in high school, I don't think we do enough of that kind of training, or we work with our athletes to be able to have that kind of mentality. Because it's one thing to push through the pain, but it's another thing to be able to have that mental toughness to be like, this is actually kind of hard, but I know I have another gear. And also being able to be tough enough to be like, you know what, my body's telling me that I actually need to stop. Like
yeah,
there's days that you need to be able to listen to your body, because it can be a number of reasons. Your body's actually fatigued, you didn't hydrate enough, and if you push yourself on some of those days, there you might be having an injury or something that'll could terminate your whole season.
yeah,
And
the
that's part of that toughness. Like you have to be able to like realize that you have to be able to back off on certain days. It's not all just go 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 go. And that's one of the things that I noticed from high school coaches a lot, that it's just push them because they're young and they'll be able to recover.
Yeah, definitely see that with a lot of high school sports. But at the same time, like you said, you got to be able to push yourself through things, but you can't push yourself through an injury or pain.
Mm-mm.
Your body's limited, and you need to recover and treat it properly. If it's a car, you're not just putting water in the gas tank. You're
Yeah.
putting the uh correct gas and fuel for it. You need to do that with your body too. Sleep is huge for recovery,
Mm-hmm.
and also rest. You can't do one thing forever at 24/7.
No,
You
not
need
at
break,
all.
you need recovery, you need hell, sometimes you need time to miss it and just get that hunger back.
Oh, I agree. I mean, and that's along with the mental toughness. Like, you do get to a point where you are just like completely over it. And if you're over something, especially because I got to that point a few times during my running career in high school, where I was just over running. I was like, it wasn't fun for me anymore. I was just doing it because I had to like be like the team captain or whatever. But there was a few times where I was just like, I don't even want to be at practice. Like, this isn't enjoyable, and I'm not having fun. Of course, we'd go through like winter season, and that'd give me time to like take some time off and not have to work, do all the workouts all the time. You start missing it, and then all of a sudden you come back to like track season, and then you're hungry and you like want to get after it. So it
Uh,
is something that as an athlete you need to be able to take breaks.
See, and the thing with like MMA, wrestling, and track and field, cross country, those are sports where they're pretty much year long. It's not like they
Mm-hmm.
really just have a dedicated season. It's you can find events 365. Um, it may not be exactly the same, but like even high school wrestling, when that season ends, you still have freestyle and Greco-Roman club wrestling through USA Wrestling. But then, yeah, like you have Spartan races and all these other kind of racing events that you can get yourself into if you feel it. But it's a lifestyle, not so much just a sport that you're just going to play, you know?
Oh no, I
Oh,
completely agree. It's not trying to bash on like football or baseball or anything like that, but that's why those are called games. You
yeah.
know, it's a football game, it's a baseball game, and when you go to a meet, it's it's different. Like it's super competitive. I'm not saying that football isn't super competitive, but it's still like a, a pastime.
Yeah.
When
I
it
know
comes
exactly.
down, yeah, when it comes down to like wrestling or MMA, track, cross country, there's sports that people do because they have like a crazy passion for that kind of thing, and it's like we do it day in day out, um, Saturday Sundays, we're just into it. I've noticed it's a different breed of people that get into these sports because they're not just like, oh, we're gonna go out there to do it for fun. Sometimes it's just because it helps you cope with like life things. Like my wife used to hate running, and she just recently started running. Now she's like completely in love. She's like, it helps me relax every once in a while. I do it now because it's like I need some sort of outlet,
Yes.
and I'm like waiting for races to come back, because once racing starts and I get to start racing again, it's I become a whole different person like on race day. And
Yeah. That competitive nature inside of you.
yeah, and it changes everything about my whole lifestyle as well. Like it's not just like on race day I'm like super competitive. Like something starts like going on inside of me that I'm just like become competitive in like every form of my life. And like I start putting more effort than I usually have into like everything else I do. And like it's crazy how like something like this can just affect your whole life.
Exactly. And it's one of those things that teaches you the life lessons that you need for not only sports, but for everything else you do. If you can put in that kind of dedication, that time, that energy, and that focus into running, who says you can't put it into something else, like say cooking or say, working on cars?
Yeah.
You could be good at anything as long as you put the time, the effort, and the energy into it. It may take some people longer. It may take some people shorter who may be naturally gifted for it, but it doesn't mean that you can't also get the same results. It just may take you a little more work.
Yeah. I think Coach Sugars touched on this too during this podcast, that it teaches you life lessons. Like when you go down, you have to be able to get back up. Like you have a bad race, doesn't matter. Next race, you push yourself to be better. You learn all this stuff. You're not gonna cry about it because this time like some dude beat you by like an inch. So
Mm-hmm.
what? Did you put 100% into that race? Yeah. Then don't bitch about it. You did what you could.
Yep. And if you didn't, you know exactly where you could have improved. And then now next time you know exactly where that is. So if you start falling off at the minute mark and you slow down, you know that you got to train so when that minute hits, you don't slow down.
Yeah.
Keep a certain pace at a certain time, and you got to make all those adjustments as your body tells you.
Yeah. So like going back to like my high school career, like all this stuff like is things that I wish I would have known back then. Because I used to just go to practice, try to get the mileage in, try to get faster and faster and faster, but I wasn't like I don't think I was mentally strong enough back then. And that's why my times weren't as competitive as they could have been. Um, it was just one of those things where I was trying to do it for fun. And then after a while, like once junior year hit, I was trying to do it more to like try to get a scholarship to go to college. And then it became this obsession for me, instead of being more of like a tool for me to like get into college. It became like everything that I wanted to do was around track and cross country. So like even the school that I chose it because of that. Like there was other schools that didn't have track but would only have cross country for college, and I was like, no, I'm not going to go to that school because then I'm not going to be able to do one of the two sports.
Yeah.
um, I get the obsession about it, and I get that a lot of student athletes do the same thing, but we need to, I wish I would have had a better understanding of what I was doing, just
Yeah, I
because,
mean, hindsight's always 2020. You
yeah.
know, I look at myself now and I'm like, dude, I would have kicked my own ass in high school if I knew what I knew now. I would have just destroyed myself.
Oh yeah.
And it's like
Um,
it always feels nice, like those movies where you got like that 30-year-old going back play high school sports, like just dominate everything. It's like, wouldn't that be nice? But
yeah. If I, yeah, all the time it just ends up being like, if I would have knew what I know today, but it's like, that's in the past. You got to learn from that stuff. Um, I mean, I'd love to try, like, even a few years ago, I tried to go help out with the cross country team here, and it was so rewarding to be able to go back and like show some of these younger guys, like, look, learn from these experiences that I had, do this, and this, and you're gonna go a little bit further than whatever I could do. And yeah, it like worked out for them. And I'm like grateful that I was able to like help them out with a little bit of like their training and like hopefully teach them some lessons that they will take for the rest of their lives. But it sucks that I didn't have that in high school. And then
well,
also that I didn't take advantage of, like when I did have it with like Coach Sugars, I didn't take full advantage of his knowledge. Um, yeah, I mean, Coach Sugars was always had like things to tell us, like, hey, stop screwing around because of this, or hey, like when I was in college and high school, I did this, and I kind of just like shook it off. I was like, oh, okay, well, that was when you were. That's like who knows how many years ago.
yeah,
I think.
243 moons, I think. No. But I know exactly what you mean. I wish I would have just didn't let it go out one ear with especially people like Coleman,
Oh yeah.
because that guy, man, he did everything: bodybuilder, boxer, minor league baseball player. Did it all. So all of those life lessons, I could have learned from him. I really didn't, but he did teach me how to tape my hands for fighting, though. So
There's something, but
I
no,
learned
yeah,
something.
yeah. There's always something you can learn from older generations, and
But it's
I'm
also, you
glad.
can't learn it all from one person either. It
No,
was that we didn't have the diversity of coaches like a lot of other people got.
yeah, and
Like
I mean that's a
one
big
coach,
difference.
we had like 3 cross country coaches, and even they weren't, competed at the higher levels. So you're not going to get the best training if you don't have the most decorated coaches who have been through, those kind of rigorous trainings, like an Olympic athlete coaching a college or something. So that's why uh, that knowledge gap grows whenever you hit college, because you
Oh
got more
yeah,
experienced people passing on even more information on top of what you already learned. And like you said, it's just the foundation. So once you got that foundation, then if it's good, they can pile on all that you can handle.
yeah. Well, I mean, just taking my training from high school compared to college, it was night and day. High school, it was just like do your mileage. Like during summer season when we were trying to build our bases, we would like go up to like maybe 80 miles a week, and that felt like it was an insane amount of mileage. Then I got to college, and my first summer that I actually trained with that cross country team, we hit, I think like during our peak mileage of the summer, we were like doing between 120 130 miles a week.
Ooh.
Yeah, so it's like you wake up at 5, you go for your first run, then later on you do your second run, and you're like just building this insane base. And it is a monster once you get to like your second week of like 100 miles. Your legs are completely, it feels like you're running with lead shoes.
I bet.
And like after
Tired
that you like drop
of it.
down to, it's insane. And it's like you don't expect that coming right out of high school unless you're with like an elite team, which normally are like schools near like big universities, like near USC probably, or near Oregon State, which are like big into cross country and track. Like those high school teams are insane. They have coaches that have like ran in or coached NCAA teams, and like they just drop down to high school because they want to take it a little bit easier. You have guys that have like been professional athletes coaching them, and they're like pushing their kids to like do 100-mile weeks their junior year in high school, you know,
That's amazing.
and like
That's a
you get to
little,
college and it's insane.
yeah. I mean, it should be maybe 80 to 90 for high school. You know, they still got classes. They still got to graduate first. You know,
Yeah,
they
but I
don't
mean
even know
that's the thing
how to
that
vote or set up a bank account. You know, so they don't have to be a college athlete. You know, whenever they're a junior in high school.
but that's the big thing about like those D1 colleges that are like nationally ranked and like that have athletes that are gonna eventually go on to compete in like the Olympics or at the world stage. They come from these high school programs that are just beyond what most of our high schools in the area would normally be.
Oh yeah.
Um, it's because and I mean I know you've seen this in MMA and in wrestling, and because I've seen it all over high school running. Most of the time the guys that are on the world stage are the ones that were doing like college level work back when they were freshmen and sophomores in high school, but it's because they've had this upbringing from like parents that were doing the same thing or that know better and are pushing their kids to do this.
And who they know.
Yeah, you know,
Like
like
Gilroy
we
High.
didn't have that luxury.
Yeah, Gilroy High was a perfect example of that. They always had that solid, probably like 5, 6, 7 guys in the state finals every year. Um, and now they have Daniel Cormier as their coach, which is an Olympic wrestler. So there you go. Now you have an Olympic level guy, and also who was a professional world heavyweight MMA fighter, teaching you how to wrestle from, your ninth grade till your 12th grade. Of course, it's
Yeah.
going to be leaps and bounds above other people, or at least it should be. You know, it still depends on the athlete themselves. You know how hard they want to work for it. Like Sugar said, Coleman said, you can't teach desire. So
No,
these
you
kids
can't.
also, these kids also had that desire young. They knew what they wanted to do. We were still playing with Yu-Gi-Oh cards and Beyblades and going out playing ultimate frisbee. We weren't thinking about we wanted to be that level, that early. But
Oh yeah,
who knows?
no. I mean, my freshman year, only reason I went out for cross country was because I wanted to do some sort of sport, you know, and like my parents didn't want me to do play football. So I was like, well, what's the next thing I can do that they'll probably be okay with? And I was like, well, shoot, maybe cross country will be super easy, and it's just running, right? And I mean, after a while, I got into it, and like it became my life, luckily. And it took me places. It was nice, um, and I really appreciate everything that my coaches did. You know, Coach Sugars, Coach Smith. Um, they were great guys. And even Coach Magallanes, who at the time, I think even now, he still has the CSAT High 2-mile record.
Ooh.
Yeah, so he was one of our coaches, and they were great. They're amazing people, but at the same time, they didn't have the knowledge to get us to the point that they should have been able to get us.
Yeah, it's like you can have all the talent, but if you don't have that guidance, it's like you're just firing off a machine gun instead of aiming it. You're going to do a
Exactly.
lot better if you know where to aim.
Yeah, I mean, out of the three, Sugars definitely competed at a higher level, I want to say, and like he knew a little bit more because also he was the younger of the three. So he went through like more of the newer style of coaching in college. As for Coach Smith and Magallanes, who ended up going through the coaching of the mentality of like just put in all the mileage and run faster, faster, faster each time. You
Mhm.
know, like
They
just push
understand
the
the science
pace.
behind it.
Yeah, you had Sugars who actually understood a little bit more of the science and everything else.
Yeah, and
And
he
he
also had
graduated with a
kinesiology.
degree in like kinesiology, so he definitely understood this a lot more.
Oh yeah, George actually just graduated a year ago from Fresno State with this kinesiology degree. So now he's a boxing trainer now here in
I saw
Fresno.
that.
So, you know, uh, kinesiology, that's a great business to go into because there's so many opportunities of jobs that you can apply that to. You know,
Yeah,
said you could be a PE teacher, you could run a recreation camp for kids, or you know, be a trainer, personal trainer, fitness trainer. Um, but kinesiology, you know, it's study of how the body works. It's good stuff to know.
it is. I wish we would have people like that back when we were in high school, because I know that a lot of us had some pretty bad form when we either ran or even in wrestling and stuff. You know, it's form is a lot. It makes up a lot of the work.
It does. And it's
Uh,
all at a certain point, it's repetition. But like you said, if you're not taking care of your body and doing the right things, it ain't going to matter. You're just going to rep yourself into an early retirement.
yeah, and I mean, going even back to repetition, like if you're repeating bad form, that's going to be your form, and it's going to be hard to break that. I finally was able to break that form. I went to see a PT not too long ago, just because I started having like a lot of problems again. Went to see him, and he's like, "Look, I want to do like a form study on you." So taped me up, videotaped me while I was running, and like he's like, "Dude, like your heel striking is bad. Like, have you been running like this all along?" I was like, "Well, this is the only that I'm running. Like, how hard is it? You know?" And he's like, "Dude, no." So like we started fixing all of that. Got new style of shoes, you know, like a lot lower to the ground. Not like what everyone else is using right now, that I think is the Hoka 1-1s, which are like super padded shoes.
Mm.
So I started wearing like really low profile shoes, just because that way I can actually feel the ground and feel like when I'm heel striking, was able to like get onto the ball of my foot now. Made a huge difference in like everything. Just my whole running, everything feels a lot easier now.
So for us non-runners out there, hill striking, is that just where you end up stepping too heavy on the hill?
Yeah, so heel striking is when you land on your heel, and normally when you're running, you want to be pushing yourself forward. So when you land on the ball of your foot, so like more like the center front area of it, you're pushing forward and you're using less energy. And compared to like when you strike with your heel, it's just like you're putting on the brakes and you're getting all this pressure going straight up into your knees and your quads, and it's just you're
Splint,
exerting so much
that?
more energy.
And is that how you get things like shin splints and all
It
that?
is. That's one of the ways. And also normally when you heel strike, if you're a really bad heel striker, the front of your foot will start slapping
Mm.
against the concrete, and that's gonna like also send up a lot of vibrations up your shins, and that's also gonna like push you towards having shin splints. So I'll recommend to always like keep on looking down at your feet, make sure that one, your knees are over your ankles when you're running. You don't want to like hyperextend, because then you're gonna possibly pull a hamstring or something, lead to shin splints. So you definitely want to have like a little bit of a lean, land on the ball of your foot, and always keep in mind how you're running. That's why I hate running with like headphones and music, because it like takes away from me being able to concentrate on what I'm doing mechanically.
Yeah, and then you can't even hear your own pitter patters.
Mm-hmm. You know, you can't hear your strides, how your stride is going. You can't hear how you're breathing. Um, there's way more to running than just being out there and like lifting your knees and pushing forward. It's pretty technical when you get down into it.
Especially at the higher levels. But yeah, like you said, you know, if you're going forward, you need to be on the balls of your feet driving forward. You know, use that arch to spring yourself forward.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you're on your heels, like same thing with boxing and anything else. If you're on your heels, you can't move well. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you're planted like your tree roots. But as soon as you get onto your balls of your toes, now you can start bouncing around doing a little Sugar Ray Leonard, you know. But until you work on your footwork, you know, it's going to be real tough. So form is important in anything you do.
Big
But
part about sports is your
so
form.
So you guys said that you went to state one time for cross country?
Yeah, so we went to state my freshman year, or our freshman year, so 2004.
Hmm.
We had a killer team back then. Of course, my cousin was a senior, and he was like the big time cross country guy at CSAT High.
What was his
Um,
name? I always
his name's
forget.
Adalberto. Everyone
Yeah,
called him
that's
Al.
right. Hmm.
As Al. So that guy was just insane, and he had put in so much work. You know, like I think he took first place at the Stanford meet that
Nice.
same year. Huge for that. So I mean, having him as our number one guy just like put us over the edge to be able to like make that cut. Then we had, of course, like a really solid 2, 3, 4 guys. Um, and after that, there was like um, a junior whose name's Steven. And then there was, I think you remember this guy, Charles Joey.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Charles, yeah.
Yeah. So there
That
was
that's
him.
in our fantasy football league
Oh, is he really?
for the podcast. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. So Chucky was on the team. He was like our number 6 guy. And then I was the number 7. And then we had another freshman who was our number 8 guy. Uh,
Nice.
but yeah,
Was it
we were
Theo Gibson?
solid. What's that?
Was it also Theo Gibson, one of the top runners there?
No, Theo wasn't one of our top guys until our junior year.
Oh,
I think he came into cross country our sophomore year.
gotcha.
He didn't run our freshman year. So our freshman year there was only 2 of us, and I mean having a solid team of like mostly seniors that were like really encouraging, really helped out with myself and Alex Funderburk was the other guy, other freshman.
Thunderberg. Oh, I miss him.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it helped to push us both to like try to be a lot better. And of course, we were all just so competitive that everyone wanted to be in that top 7 group. Um,
Yeah.
so it was just a back and forth between all of us. And luckily, we were able to make it into state. Also, I think North County that year ended up being a D2, so that like helped out for us to make it into the D3 state meet. Else, I don't think we would have made it in. I mean, you know, North County always had like an insane team.
Yep.
But yeah,
And
no,
other
state
sports.
was a whole nother experience, especially because it's like right around Thanksgiving. So it's in Fresno at Woodward Park, so it's cold, super cold. All right, so coming from Monterey, you're not used to that type of weather. So, and I mean, you have the best teams in the whole state running at the same time. So you come in with these crazy jitters. You get on the line and it's just like, all right, what's going to happen today? And you just hear the gun go off and it's almost like you black out. And you like barely remember any of the race until like near the end. But
Just enter that trance.
yeah.
You know, that
And
tunnel vision gets going and you're just off, literally off to the races, you know?
yeah. And I mean, I think our first mile, I mean, at that point, I don't think I had ever broken 6 minutes for a mile. And that first mile, everyone just went out so hard. I think I ran like a 5:40 that day for my first mile. And it was just insane to me.
Nice. I think I only got under 6 minutes one time in my entire life. And that was probably freshman year during the presidential testings. Uh, and I was racing. Chucky Joy was in that class, and dude, he finished, and I was just trying my hardest to keep up with him, and I was so dead. And then all of a sudden, you just see him go, beat me by like half a lap, man. I
That
was
boy was
like,
fast.
yep. So I was like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, there's some serious speedsters out here, and they can keep it going. That to me, I was quick for a short period of time, you know, like a 40, you know, but I couldn't keep that speed up forever.
Yeah.
But I also never trained to do it either. So,
No, yeah,
but
no. We were training partner with Charles, because he was our actual 400, 800 guy, and then I did everything from like 800 on up during high school, right? So we would end up having to train together in order to like one make me faster in the 800, and to make him stronger for the 800. So we were always like doing our mile repeats and all that together.
Yeah,
But yeah, it was always really competitive. He was a very competitive guy. So practices weren't just like, all right, go like do your workout. It was always like racing the whole time.
exactly. Practices are supposed to be hard so that game day or competition day is fun.
Yeah.
You know, so like I said, and there's no substitute for having a good training partner, because most of the time the reason why people never get good or reach their potential is because they don't have anybody that can hang or push them except for maybe a coach.
Yeah.
And you can't just train against your coach all day. That's not the coach's job. You're supposed to build a program that helps the athletes help push each other, but it's tough. But so I'm glad you were able to have someone like that. Being a twin, I had George my whole life. So I always had stiff competition, whether it came to drawing a picture or Easter egg hunting to sports. So, and there's no substitute for it.
No, not at all. I know right now I do miss having someone to train with because it's super hard to get out there some days and just like push the pace, and it helps when you have like at least one other person who like tell you, hey, come on, we got to get on this today. I mean, like
Well, they
today I
have
just had an
similar
easy run.
mindset. They got to
Uh,
have that similar mindset, or it's not going to matter. They ain't going to be able to push you the way that you need the pushing. So,
yeah.
yeah, it's tough. It's tough, especially as we get older, and those kind of opportunities become less and less. It's easy when you're in high school
Hmm.
because you're around people all the time, and you can kind of try to recruit them in, or if they're in, share your knowledge. But like you say, when you're on your own, it's literally the toughest thing.
Yeah. But it makes you tough too. So you need to have those days where you just go on your own, but you also need a few days where you can try to find like someone to run with and someone
Mm.
that'll push you.
Yeah, it makes you stay accountable to yourself.
Yeah.
Um, that's
I mean
awesome. So,
that accountability is a big thing. I know I remember like there was a few times when like I was younger and I'd just like go ahead and grab my watch and like I'd be like, you know what? Maybe I'll just like let it keep running and like I'll say I ran this much, but actually I didn't, and like just play it off. I'm not hurting my coach. I'm not hurting anyone else but myself. I'm not gonna get better because I'm cheating myself.
mhm.
So nowadays it's nice to have like all this technology, like the Garmin watches and stuff like that, just because it
The
keeps you
track.
accountable. Yeah,
Yeah,
you once you hit start on your watch, it's gonna like keep on going. If you stop, it's gonna show that you stopped, and it's not gonna count your mileage. So it's really helped me to like be able to look down and be like, okay, this is my pace. I'm doing this. Like it keeps me having to do the work.
yeah, and you can analyze yourself that way, because
Yeah.
back then we weren't able to analyze. We had a stopwatch. We had to look at our actual watch and then be like, run, and then, all right, now what's the time? Do some math. But nowadays, I mean, shoot, they'll tell you how well you're sleeping, how well you're breathing, when you should rest, when you should push yourself harder. Shoot, it'll tell you even now, like if you're starting to feel you might be sick. Like what?
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
it's nice to have this type of technology, and I wish we had it back in high school. And it goes from your watches even down to your shoes. Like some of the running shoes nowadays are just insane. Like they have carbon fiber plates in them that are supposed to help you so that it springs you forward, so that like makes it so that you can run faster and more efficient. Um, the soles have like certain type of like rubber to make it easier for you to like take off and be able to like step off better. It's insane compared to like what we had coming up that was just like your old normal running shoes.
yeah, we had old men yelling at us. That's what we had.
Exactly. That's what we had. We had like I remember I was running in like random shoes that I got from like Big Five to go run in, you know.
I probably
And
sold it to you.
and now I'm like running in these like Boston Adidas marathoning shoes that have like the Adidas Boost combined with some like weird light strike shit that like it makes the shoe be able to make you a certain percentage faster. And I don't know if it's true or not, but it feels like I've been able to run a lot faster than I should have.
Hey, maybe
Yeah.
it's just placebo, or maybe there's some pudding, some proof in the pudding.
Yeah. I mean, even Nike just came out with their I think they're called the 2%, and they're like, so they just broke, like I think last year they broke the world record for the marathon by having one of the top marathoners run in those shoes, and he broke 2 hours.
Ooh. How long
Yeah,
was the race?
it was a full marathon, so 26.2 miles in 2 hour in under 2 hours. I think he was running like 420 something, 430 per mile.
That is insane.
Yeah,
26 miles in 2 hours.
yeah. So,
I don't
and I
even know if
mean,
I
no one
could do that
had done
in a
that
car.
before.
Yeah, I don't
And
think I could do that in a car, man.
I mean, this guy goes out and do it, and like they're saying that it was because of these shoes. So I want to say like at some point they ended up banning them for a little bit, just because they were like kind of gave too much of an advantage over all the other shoe companies.
Yeah, that makes sense because they're sponsored at that point. So, you
Hmm.
got your Adidas sponsored runners and they can't wear the Nike shoes. So, yeah,
Yeah,
that makes
like
sense. But
it
also
made
it
the
should have
field
pushed
uneven.
yeah, it also should have pushed them to make their own version too. So,
Yeah, no, I agree. So
just
yeah,
like
no.
anything else, there's competition in everything.
Hmm. But I mean, once you get to that point, like, and I was thinking about this a few days ago. I was like, it's one thing to like have this, all of these shoes and all this stuff to make you faster, but then how do we know exactly how much the human body can do? Like it
New
like
records
puts,
being set
yeah,
every day, it seems like.
like how do we know that some of the guys that ran those world records prior to like having these type of shoes wouldn't have been way faster with this type of technology?
Yeah, I would love to see a side by side of him with and without the shoes and see exactly how much of a difference it makes,
Yeah,
because like I said, who knows? Maybe he could just had a very, very good training camp for the event and he was just peaked, ready to go and had his best run ever, you know?
yeah. It's,
But
it
unless you
all comes down.
shoes, you can't take away the shoes. Like it's not like baseball where it's like everybody's got to use a wooden bat, but one guy's using an aluminum.
Yeah,
Just
no, you
hitting
can't, you don't get to do that.
it's just hitting them like they're golf balls. Dink! And it's in Makoto. But yeah, so well, that's awesome. So and you guys never went back to state throughout your time?
No, we didn't get to go back to state. We made it to CCS every year after that, um, which I mean, it ain't bad.
Hmm.
Still in the sectional finals, but it's not like making it to state. Um,
Yeah.
and it sucks that we didn't get to, but I mean, it didn't line up. We After that we only had like 3 guys that were really in shape to run at state, and then everyone else was more like a good 2 minutes off of our pace.
Mhm.
So we just didn't have the team, and it's because being from a D3 school, everyone there's just not enough people to get onto the team where you can get like that depth in your field in your team to have
Ye-
an and that makes a huge difference.
I mean, look at our high school wrestling team. At one year, we had 7 people, and Monterey had something like 63.
Yeah, it
So
makes a
they
huge
had
difference
3
when you have
people,
that depth in your team.
and it's like I said, there's no substitute for good training partners,
Hmm.
in order to push yourself. But so for state and CCS, how did it work? Was it the whole team had to qualify, or could you have individual qualifiers?
You had individual qualifiers, and I want to say it was the top 10 um, outside of the actual teams that qualified. And the teams that qualified were the top 3 teams in CCS immediately went on to state. And then the top 10 athletes after those would go on to state as well.
So
And
so they were.
normally, yeah. So normally it'd be like your top three teams would probably have maybe four guys in the top 10 section. So then the next 10 after that would end up going to state. That were
Got
your top individual finishers. Um, so of course when we made it, we were top three in in the teams. So
Okay.
that's how we went as a team. And then after that, the next few years, like my sophomore year, um, it was just I wasn't just fast enough to make it into state. Like I think at that point I was probably running like a 1750 or something like that, just barely under 18 my sophomore year. And then from there, I think the fastest I got down to was like 1701 or something like that. So it's just most of these top 10 guys were like running 15 odd. You know,
Oh,
like they were fast guys.
oh yeah.
Um,
But then again, you were also a sophomore, you know, so
yeah.
how many sophomores are that fast? You know, it takes
Hmm.
a year or two to really develop that.
Yeah. So I mean, it was just the competition was just really strong. And like by my senior year, like the top guys were like running in like the mid 14s. So
Yeah.
it's like, and I never got to be able to run that fast until like probably college. I was starting to like get down into those times. But then by college, I wasn't running 5Ks anymore because cross country in high school, it's all 5K races. And then once you get to college, it goes to 8 and 10K races.
Oh, okay.
So like it didn't matter how fast I was in a 5K once I got to college because I was
Yeah.
running double the mileage.
Yeah. A whole
I
different.
want to, yeah, I want to say I had a decent career in high school. You know, it got me to run in college, got me fast enough to be at least part of a D2 college program. Um, got really awesome experiences running in that program. I mean, I didn't personally get to go to the Hawaii and Alaska race, but I mean, I got to travel all over California to run races throughout the state, compete against some of the best guys in the nation as well.
That's awesome. So at Humble, you did track and field and cross country, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So getting to race against some of the best guys around, you know, that's got to feel good. But how did it? What? Let's go back a little bit to high school. So you said you were looking for a sport. What made you want to do cross country in the first place? What made you go to tryouts?
The fact that I thought it was going to be easy because it was just running was my mentality. This is just running. Can't be that hard, right?
Hmm.
And I was completely wrong. But it just, I'm more the mentality where like if I start something, I want to finish it. So like I started cross country and I went to practice and like did my tryouts and I went through a week and at that point I was just like, okay, I think I'm in way too deep already. And if I like quit, then it's gonna look weird that like, oh, look at him. He just came out for like a week and then dipped out.
Yeah, you don't
So
want to be that guy.
no, so I was just like, all right, I guess I'll just have to finish this season and then I'll just be like, oh, I just didn't want to do it for my sophomore year or whatever. But then got through the whole season and then we made it a state. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I should stay in this.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, when you get to state your rookie year, you know, not bad, not bad.
Yeah, so did that, got to state, got to experience all of that. And once you get to that, I mean, you know this too, your team members become kind of like your extended family. So like you love going to practice and you love hanging out with all of them and they become like your best friends at that point. So after that, there's really no going back.
There's no substitute for common ground, you know.
Yeah,
So passionate about the same things, it makes it easy to find conversations.
exactly.
But
So like you don't you after that you just can't leave the sport, or at least I couldn't.
yeah, and so that's the camaraderie. That's the reason why you it kept you in.
Yeah.
Nice, nice. So so back to college. Outside of the distances, what would you say was the biggest transition that you had to make going from the high school level and to the college level?
I want to say the independence that I had in just in my own life, because now in high school you end up having to go to practice right after school.
Yeah.
So it's like you go to school, you go to practice, and you come home. In college, you have to actually make everything work. So now you become an adult, and you have responsibilities outside of just going to school and cross country. So I mean, you have to like figure out how you're going to make your classes so that you can also go to practice, and then of course having all this newfound liberty from like the constraints of living at home. Now you have to like be able to like put your social life in there too. So I want to
Yeah.
say like trying to figure all that out together was probably like the biggest thing, and there's a lot I would redo if I could.
You ain't the only one,
Yeah,
but
I mean,
the toughest part is learning how to be on your own. And
hmm
when you still got all of these other things going on, you don't get to put as much time into it. So you don't truly understand what it's like trying to get credit and make sure that you keep your credit up high for when you get older. You can buy cars, homes, things like that. No one teaches you really how to make a savings account. No, like there's no classes for that.
yeah,
Uh,
and I mean outside of that, you're finally, I guess, free, in quotes, because you don't have like you get to do whatever you want once you're far away from your family. At least in my case, I was all the way up in Humboldt, which is like an 8-hour drive from here, and there's absolutely nothing out there besides trees. And then you have this little town in the middle of nowhere. So you have all this liberty to like go to parties and hang out with whoever you want, and then you have class, and if you want, you can do most of your classes in the morning and do whatever you want at night, or you can like sleep in and go to class later in the afternoon. So
Yeah, it's less
yeah,
micromanagement over
yes,
you.
but then you have to be responsible for yourself, and I think that's one of the big things where a lot of like freshmen and sophomores in college have a lot to really deal with.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was lucky that I was starting to live on my own at 17. I mean, forcefully, but so, but I was working since I was 13 years old too at the
hmm
cinnamon roll shop. So I always kind of had that advantage when it came to finances, knowledge, and what it's like to have work experience. Because most of the time, whenever you get out of college, for people, that's their first job,
yeah,
and they don't do well because they didn't they understand the material, but they didn't understand the hands-on part of it. Um,
I completely agree.
and so, especially whenever it comes to you're finally getting your freedom, yeah, of course you're gonna get loose, get a little wild, like, hey, nobody's looking over my shoulder, it's what, let me try this, let me try to drink this beer,
Yeah.
but hey, yeah, sure, I'll do this drunk mile race, get into
and
any of those.
and that's where like also who you hang out with comes into play at that point, because some people are going to be like, let's do this, and then you're going to have other teammates that are like more of the quiet guys and the guys that are actually there to get their degree and not just party.
Hmm.
And you have to like find that right combination of being able to work on what you're there for, which is getting your degree, and then also doing your sport, and then finally your social life.
Hmm.
But that was pretty tough for me, at least my first year, because I wanted to just, it was all about my social life at that point.
Oh yeah.
um and
And
like
college school is a lot different than the high school workload. It's
hmm
less hand holding, more independent, just like in the sports. But also, they don't care if you pass or fail. They get paid either way. So
yeah,
that's on you, if you want to keep playing sports or if you want to keep working towards your degree.
Yeah, and if you want to be on the team, then you have to have a certain GPA, and to the teacher's not good. If you want to know what your GPA is, and if you want to know how you're doing in class, you have to go into your class and you have to go talk to your teacher about all of this.
You
They're
got to
not going to be,
calculate the
yeah,
score.
they're not going to be on you like, hey, why aren't you turning in your homework? Hey, what's going on at home? They don't care. They, this is your responsibility. At this point, you're an adult
Yep.
and you better do the work because this is your money or your parents' money or the government, whatever it is, it's on you now.
And no one else is going to do it for you.
No, not at all. So, that it was a tough transition to not have someone like on me because I wanted to be able to have fun.
Yes.
Of course, after a point I was like, oh shit, like I'm messing around too much, and like got my shit together and like started doing the right thing. But that first few months was just like going wild, and I want to say that my running got affected by that too for a bit, because I wasn't putting in as much of the work as I should have, and I think that also had something to do with me pulling my hamstrings. I mean, that's what we'll go into that in a minute. So once I got to college, I started doing workouts on my own since I got there like a month before school opened.
Mm-hmm.
So I got there a month before. Few of the guys were already training from the cross country team. So I was doing a few workouts, and they saw me doing these workouts. They're like, "Hey, dude, you need to come on the team." I was like, "All right, cool." So walked onto the team, did a few races with them preseason, and like I think all was like maybe their seventh or eighth guy. So like I was in good shape. So we started the season, and I talked to my counselor, and they were like, "You need to redshirt this season. Like it'd be better if you just hang out and learn the workload, and then that's gonna help you so that you have an extra year later on."
Yeah.
For those that don't know what a redshirt year is, in college you can like put off one season of your sport and be a redshirt, so you don't participate in any of the actual meets or the games or anything like that, but you're still part of the team.
Yeah.
uh,
Practice squad, basically.
exactly. So you can do that if you know that you're going to have a kind of like if you're working on a degree that's going to be longer than 4 years, you can always do a redshirt season, and
So,
then that
so
way.
you would be to play after your senior year for one season if you redshirt then.
Correct. So, like, since I had a redshirt in my freshman year, I would have been that year doesn't count, but at least I would have had the workload and be able to understand what was expected of me on the cross country team. Then after that, I have 4 more years to actually like really get to my peak season and like get through. So
Yeah.
I redshirted my first year, um, did all the work. It was I think that was probably the best decision I could have made because I was able to like put in that super high mileage that I had never put in my life and not have to worry about getting injured. Even though I got injured like halfway through it, I ended up twisting my ankle and it was like it was really bad. And I had to take like 3 months off after that.
Oof.
Yeah.
Was there any tears in it or?
Luckily there wasn't, but I hyperextended the ligament. So I
Mm,
had to take some time off for that ligament to be able to recover. And it was bad.
yeah.
Had to go through physical therapy, and there was a lot to do, a lot of work to do again just to get back to where I was. So was able to redshirt that year, and then my sophomore year when I finally got back and we started actually racing, um, got through cross country season, had a decent season, um, but then got into track, and that year I I felt at like probably my peak. Um, so we went to run some meets down in the Bay Area, and we had one part of the crew go to run the Stanford meet, and I was part of the crew that went to run the San Francisco Invitational. And I want to say I was on pace to probably run like sub 4 for a 1500, right? So I was like in really good shape. And like we came into the bell lap, and this is when I like took the turn on the track coming into the last 300 meters of the race. And like I felt so good that I was like, I'm gonna just push from 300. I'm gonna kick it in all the way. Like we'll see what happens. And I hit probably like 250 to go, and just feel this like full on pull, and I just dropped to the ground.
Mm.
And I was like, what the hell just happened? So like my legs all cramped up. I'm like in super crazy pain. They take me off the field finally. Like I had my brother was there, so he like grabbed me and takes me off the field, and we go over to get checked out. And they're like, dude, like first of all, that's like a bad pull. Like you're gonna have to get checked out by your trainers once you get back. Yeah, they're like, you're like really close to having like actually have torn your hamstring. So after that, it was just pretty much rehab, like PT, then doing a bunch of workouts in the pool, some cycling, just like everything to get myself back up and running. But I didn't feel the same after that. And it's been a good like almost 10 years since that happened, even
Yeah,
to
some
this
of that
day.
never go away.
Yeah.
Still to this day, every time I do a push-up, I hear my shoulder pop, and that's just from years of having big dudes sprawl on me and getting my arm caught under them, and and when you don't take care of it properly, it lingers a lot longer, like
Yeah.
mine. But I'm glad that at least you had some trainers to kind of help guide you in some personal training, because that's
Yeah.
probably the reason why you're able to run today.
I think so too. It took me a while to finally get to be able to run how I'm running now, because I was always. It's a little bit shocking to you, and like you keep this shock in your head for so long that I remember even up to like 3 or 4 years ago when I would start running. I mean, we have that competitive nature, and like like how fast you were able to run, so you want to get to that point super fast, and you end up pushing yourself. Like I at least end up pushing myself way too much, way too fast. So like I would keep on pushing myself, and then I would start feeling like a little tiny bit of a pull starting to happen on my hamstring or something, and then I get freak out, and I'd be like, you know what, no, I'm gonna like get off for a little bit. Like hamstrings are still not good. I was
Mm.
traumatized, man. you
Yeah.
know for a while I was actually traumatized. Now I've gotten to the point where like after seeing plenty of physical therapists and like doing different types of work and actually putting the weightlifting into my programs, now I actually feel comfortable when I go running, and like I actually am able to push myself to those times that I used to run in high school. Like I ran some mile repeats a couple weeks ago, and I was like doing 5:45 repeats, so like I'm finally at that point, and I wouldn't have been able to do that like 2-3 years ago. I would have been freaking out that I was going to pull that hamstring all over again.
And now I'm curious, what was your diet like in high school compared to when you get to college and you're competing? Was it still hot Cheetos and bagels, or was it bunch of pizza to keep the calories up? What was
All of that. So probably the biggest thing that now I question why high school runners do this is when they carbo load.
mm,
Like cross country teams end up having like pasta feeds and all this stuff right before like a race, and it's like you don't even need you don't get to the point where you're going to start using that kind of carbohydrates in a 5K race.
yeah.
Like if you carbo load, it's going to be for a race that's going to be like maybe a half marathon, definitely a full marathon. But for a 5K, you end up going through your um, through your energy storages not that fast, and
Mm,
you're never going to tap into get into a carbohydrate deficiency to the point where you need a carb load. But yeah, in
yeah.
high school, I ate so much, and that was not the best thing I could have done. Like there'd be days where like right after practice, I'd be super hungry, and I'd go to like the Baldomero's taco shop and get myself like a freaking huge ass burrito.
The
You
breakfast
know,
burritos there are amazing, man. I
yep.
miss those.
So like I'd eat that, and like it was not a healthy diet. But you're in high school, your metabolism's super high, and you can eat pretty much whatever you want.
Well, I think we lost you there.
Oh, So yeah, in high school you're able to like eat whatever you want, and it's not gonna matter because your
Your
metabolism's
sound.
so high. Oh, sound really?
Did you get muted?
How about now? Is it
Just a
working?
moment, folks.
Is that good?
All right. Well, we happened to lose audio to Arturo, but we talked about a lot today. I want to thank Arturo Corres for coming on and being another guest on Alex and an Athlete. So, for any of you people interested in cross country and track, just make sure that you take care of your body, you put in the right fuel, and you never quit on yourself. Always bet on yourself and make sure that you come out on top. So, from everyone here at the Scott Sportscast, I want to thank you, and everyone, have yourselves a great night.